Hi everyone, this is Jack. Today I want to talk a little bit about why in this day and age I am acting as a teacher and taking a job as a teacher. Um, for anyone who has graduated in the last few years and considering going into the profession, it seems like less and less people are kind of going through with that, and more people are rethinking leaving the teaching profession. Um, Now, why, as a 24-year-old or a recent college graduate, would one actually consider going into teaching? And I think it's an interesting question. And it's something I ask myself quite a lot, honestly, because I need to remind myself when I'm dealing with the stress of teaching middle school or high school, why I go through with all that. So a little bit about me. My background is actually in both chemistry and in Mandarin Chinese, and I act as a language teacher. Outside of that, I tutor mathematics, everything from algebra to calculus, pretty much everything under the sun that you would see in a high school. And that being said, one thing I do right off the bat would say that had attracted me to teaching is because I teach at a private school, I do feel that many of my assets that I bring to the table are actually utilized. I would imagine that many teachers, especially in the public school system, who are teaching a very specific subject or a specific grade level might feel that they have other talents that aren't being employed in their jobs. Well, I do feel my analytical skills and things, from working in the lab, data workup, stuff like that, that I honestly miss, and who says they miss data workup but me. But I think that many people feel they miss those things. And while there are some things I do miss from, my undergraduate research days, or from my time living in Taiwan, I absolutely think that for the most part, the things that I want to do every day are things that do get done. Oh, Panda, what you doing? In any case, that's a huge reason right there. A second for me is definitely autonomy. So because I teach in a private school and I teach 6th to 12th grade Chinese, I have a lot of autonomy in how I develop my curriculum. I am the only Mandarin Chinese teacher for that grade level. So, from that perspective, there are two things that are really interesting. So, number one, the part of my brain that feels most engaged with science or the more interesting questions in life for me. For example, why did I take Spanish for 9 years and not learn how to speak a lick of it? Versus I took Mandarin for 4 in college, and then I was more than proficient enough to go work in a lab and do theoretical chemistry and physics research, and communicate those ideas in Chinese. That kind of question is something I feel like I'm answering when I'm teaching. And beyond that, having a group of students that I take from 6th grade all the way to the prospect of graduating high school and getting to see how far they get, knowing that most of their process is coming from the input that I'm providing for them or the resources that I'm giving them, is the ultimate experiment, right? Anyone who has a scientific mind, that's a real and interested in linguistics. That's a really, really cool role to have. And granted, one of the best things about teaching this age group is that you deal with the reality of it. Now, I feel like in universities, you're only going to see students who want to actually learn that language. You're not going to see students who are kind of just going through the motions and doing it because they have to. Maybe in an intro level course, but not someone who's majoring in the language. For me, I'm going to deal with some kids who maybe their parents signed them up for Chinese. Some, they wanted to start it, and then as they got older, they say, no, I want to study X, Y, Z, and so now I don't really care about language, and this is a back burner class for me. And of course, on the opposite and more optimistic end, I get the kids who really, really love it. But that being said, as a scientist, one of the coolest things I get to see is what works universally with even students who are more disengaged than others. What things work really hyper effectively with the students who are hyper engaged. Those are really cool things to answer, and I would not get to see the answers or get to see that process unfold unless I was teaching. And so that's a big reason for me right there. Another part, and it still relates to autonomy, is because I'm the one designing my curriculum, right? And I get to have that. I feel very good. I had to think about how I wanted to phrase that. But I feel relieved that I'm giving students an education path that hopefully isn't like my experience when I was learning Spanish in school. I detested learning language in school. I thought that I was bad at language learning, even though I have a good knack and talent for it, and I figured that out as an adult. I didn't feel like I was taking anything away. I felt like it was just constant memorization for no reason. Just learning how to conjugate. I had a fundamental misunderstanding of what language is, and I feel that I'm doing my absolute best to give my students an experience that is much, much better, and something that hopefully will open their eyes to interacting with another culture or understand a new mode of thinking and feeling by engaging in a different language. These kind of things, I think, really open up young adults, and they give them much needed socialization, which is something that is dwindling in schools because everyone's looking at their phones. So that's a whole reason. That's a huge reason I became a teacher. I enjoy working with people, and if I can give an opportunity like that to a student and see how their progress is, and if they fall, help pick them back up, that's a very meaningful thing for me. And I don't think that that's for everybody. I think some people are a little more, I don't want to use the word self-centered, but they're not as concerned with the helping process. I think since I was young, I've always wanted to be a helper. I don't necessarily think that I'm someone who could go on to be a major leader in language learning and language education, but I do think that I could help a lot of students get there. And I do think I could help a lot of students realize a lot of potential and talent, and not just within language learning, but within communication in general. Finally, I'd just like to close out by saying one of the major reasons that I have become a teacher, and I think this is more universal to any teacher, I had role models in my life that I aspired to be, and many of them were teachers. Many of the things I accomplished as a student had not just one, but multiple teachers behind me cheering me on, pushing me to be more inquisitive, pushing me to ask the right questions, and finally, above all, were offering me support when I felt like I was failing academically or failing them, and offered me reassurance. I would love to have that role for a student, to kind of be that person to help pick them back up, to cheer that for them, to be in their corner. And I feel like where I teach, I have begun to have some of those relationships with students. And I'm hopeful that in a longer career, it won't just be one or two students, but it will be many. So in summation, while many people are leaving the profession and many people are starting to feel very fatigued, it's really important to remind yourself why you became a teacher or why you want to pursue education. I do think about these things genuinely every day when I go into work, and especially on the bad days. I remind myself why I'm there, and it can be a little ray of sunshine and otherwise a dark storm. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you enjoyed my perspective. If you agree, please let me know in the comments. If you disagree or you have some other rationale for being a teacher or thinking about entering the professions, let me know. Any questions, comments, concerns, please field them. I'd love to hear from you.